This conference will now be recorded.
Perfect.
Welcome,
So we're
everyone.
on.
This is Novo Mana, and welcome to another session of Technology Review Council. We're very, very pleased today to have both Vitaly and Daniela from Riipen. And I won't even begin to try to describe them because they are an extremely, I want to say, niche player in a very, very big world of getting, shall we say, the younger generations, the new generations in the workforce in such a way that we're going to have them well trained and into the workforce in record time. So I'm going to turn it over to the two of you to please introduce yourself, and then we'll just go right into the demonstration. And thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you for your kind offer as well, Nov, just for offering us an opportunity to represent Riipen and potentially seeing what opportunities may this lead to. So my name is Vitaly. Danny and I were both representing Riipen, and in my role, I help companies get connected and set up on our platform to ensure their journey starts off on a good kind of a pathway in terms of starting working with students. And Danny, you can introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. My name is Daniela Pico. I'm the Director of External Relations at Riipen, and my role is partnerships and government relations. So I do a lot of work with associations who have an interest in learning more about what Riipen can do for diversifying their workforce and for their businesses. So very excited to be here with you today and to hear some of your feedback and thoughts. For today's presentation, Vitaly is going to take the lead. I'm really just here to help answer questions and mostly to learn about all of you and what you're thinking about after you see the Riipen platform. So kick us off, Vitaly.
Awesome. Yeah. And there is a chat box, I believe, at the top right-hand corner. So feel free to use it for questions as they come up, and we'll be very happy to answer them at the end. So I will, with that, share my screen. And click present.
That looks good. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. It's taking a while to load up. All right, so just for a little bit more context on Riipen and what we do. We are North America's largest marketplace for organizations to connect with post-secondary schools on short-term projects and internships. What that means really in simple words is we have a platform that connects organizations that are looking to work with students with the actual post-secondary schools, specifically universities and colleges, where both parties can match together and work on projects and internships. So on that, I will touch upon it shortly. And so the main advantage of the platform is that you can tap into our network to accelerate your projects while also providing students with meaningful experience. Just a little bit about our platform and the company. Over the last 6 years, we've onboarded over 57,000 students that have joined through our platform and worked on projects. That cumulatively means about 2,500,000 student learning hours that they have contributed towards the projects, internships, and there's over 220 academic institutions on our platform. You can see from the image below, there's a couple of them here: University of Rochester, UBC, Penn State. In more detail, there is about 100 of them in Canada, another 100 in the United States, across different states, and then a few schools in the UK and Australia as we are expanding globally. And so with that network of schools, we've also onboarded over 10,000 companies, including nonprofits, small businesses, consultants, entrepreneurs, as well as larger organizations. As you can see, WWF, UNICEF, Deloitte, RBC Bank. So technically, what are some of the experiences and projects and internships that we're talking about? Well, there are two types of opportunities that companies can engage with schools on. Number one is in-class project. So in-class project, think of it as a course students take from their school, so they're professor-led. But now, instead of just going through their textbook case, working on their GPA, they're actually given assignment from a company that they can complete as a part of their curriculum. So now they can get graded on the actual work that they produce as a team together, instead of just theoretical based assignment. We find that it's a perfect match for companies looking for research, analysis, strategy, and technical implementation. So examples would be market research, if you're looking to expand, look into your competitive analysis, data analysis is another one if you have some data you'd like to analyze and consult, software development, maybe development of an app or a feature, and something from the HR realm is a HR handbook. So any project you can really think of where it would be nice to have, and you can just delegate to students that they can help you with. On the other hand, the virtual internships are faculty coordinated internship programs where a student becomes a part of your team. So a nice thing about this is we don't directly work with students, we work with the faculty, and then they allocate you a student or multiple students for internships, where now they become just a part of your team. They can execute the tasks you give them. There's a wide range of jobs within one particular field or background. So examples would be social media intern to take over your social media. Policy and grants researcher is a popular one among the nonprofits we have. Data compiler and analyst, if you have some data in a CRM you want to clean up, organize. An app web developer, also similar to the software development side. So those are just some ideas. Hopefully that kind of gives you a clearer picture of how these connections translate into actual work. Danny, by the way, I don't see I only see the presentation. So if you have any other comments, feel free to jump into.
Great.
So what Riipen offers and what's the process looks like, right? Like how do we get started? Well, our platform allows for seamless connection. We have the design resources for you. So if you're really not sure, like, well, I have these areas for projects, but I'm not really entirely sure if that's what I need. Well, great. Why don't we elaborate a little bit more on it and talk about it? We have templates we use. We have experienced professors and faculties that are eager to work with you, and they're able to offer you different templates to see what may work best for you. Network, of course, like we mentioned earlier, of schools, to tap into this access immediately. Selection, so not just specific school that you have, but multiple options that you can interview different professors and choose a course or multiple courses or internships for yourself that works best for you. And the matchmaking. So we don't just leave you alone there to use the marketplace, but we have a team on the back end called Client Success that will ensure that you are matched with the relevant course or internship, as well as we use machine learning algorithms and categories that allow us to provide you suggestions for what's relevant to you based on your project application. And the last two pieces are the actual project implementation when it comes to working with students, different features like project management chat, video rooms, milestones, trackability of where students are in terms of their progress. And when it's complete, you'll get a full report, and you can add them to the talent pool. So if you're recycling the projects for the purpose of getting more talent into your sort of a talent pool to see who you can later on hire, we allow for that as well. So the main benefits really that we've identified, or the values where companies see like, yeah, this is why I want to join Riipen, would be in innovation. So let's say you want to generate new ideas around the topics that are important to you, and you want to know more about that, or see what schools have to offer in terms of their creativity, technology. That's one. Branding, right? If your target market is actually millennials or students, or if you work with campuses a lot, there's over 200 million students in higher education as of now. And that's a great way to build your exposure in front of the student teams. And the last one, of course, is a recruitment, where upon the completion of the internship or project, it's a great way to identify if maybe some of the students stood out to you, if upon the completion of that experience, you'd like to work with them. So we'd like to show you a couple of real examples that have been done by the organizations that work with us to show you what that looks like in real scenarios.
Vitaly,
So example one.
I'm sorry. Do you mind if I ask you a very quick question? So
Yeah.
I think it may be sitting on everyone's mind, but we're all being very polite about not asking. But in this day and age, with a lot of the shall we say, campuses being closed and more of the online, if you will, how students are interacting with the whole education system, how are the universities advertising the fact that you exist, and how much penetration is that working? How's that working these days?
Sounds like a marketing question. Dan, you want to take it on?
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely help with that. So there's a few ways that the universities inform the industry partners that they're working with us. Primarily what they use is email list servers. So if you're already working with an institution that works with Riipen, you may have received an email. But the other thing is Riipen has its marketplace outside of the institutions. So the majority of the conversations we're having with industry partners is directly through us. And then we give you through the marketplace access to over 220 institutions that you can work with. So if that makes sense, there's sort of two separate environments. One is the university or college and their existing network, and then the other one is Riipen's network, which includes partners who also used to work with another university. And then in terms of how it's changed now that things are virtual, to be honest, from our perspective, it hasn't changed that much because most Riipen interactions had always happened virtually. So what has changed is more so the number of experiences that institutions are putting on Riipen, which has increased significantly since now students are no longer able to work with employers in person.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll touch upon that as well later on in terms of the change that has come since COVID. Pretty sure we've all been affected in one way or the other. So example one, Barocca Coffee Company. So when we chatted a little bit with Barocca Coffee Company, a small coffee shop, they wanted to build a new web presence. And so we then successfully matched them up with the University of Florida. They wanted to leverage digital channels to, as you can see, differentiate themselves from competitors. They wanted to know what's so special about their brand and how they can stand out among competitors as not just a coffee company, but as a lifestyle brand. And so they were matched with 12 master's level students, and the students developed them marketing and web design material that then later on Barocca was able to use in their marketing materials, on the website, in the content, and just significantly impacted their overall kind of a roadmap for the future and the brand. The second example is the company Infogenetica. They wanted to expand to the US market with the help of CSU, Channel Islands. They currently have operations in Canada and Mexico. They have consumer goods. I think they had skincare that they offered. And so with the help of the students from CSU, the students, they got research market, the market research from the students. And with the prospective opportunities, with the market potential, with the industry trends, as well as the competitive analysis. So you can see that at the end, students put together a location analysis, including optimal location, recommendation list, primary data collection, surveys, research into future consumers, and also legal and regulatory environment. So specifically things that Infogenetica indicated that they wanted to look for in research, that's what students focused on throughout their experience. And another company, StickerU, it's a global e-commerce company. They produce the publishing and printing materials. So what they wanted to do is they wanted just to optimize their logistics and shipping operations, cut the costs, decrease the risks, maybe increase the speed of the operations. And so in this case, we connected them with the Mahal College on supply chain management. And so students apply their analytical skills as well as the operations methodologies that they learned in a class to then use it to optimize their operations. So you can see that they provide recommendations to help StickerU save money and time to customer delivery.
So Vitaly, there's a question that's sitting out here, and Keith, I'll let you just go ahead and ask it, but it has given me a little bit of a rise of a question as well. So go ahead, Keith, open up and ask.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. As a professor, well, first, are there any metrics that show how well a student performs on a particular project? Because I mean, you kind of want to know who's slacking and who's not. So.
Yeah, I can take that, Keith. So there's a few things from the professor perspective that we've added to mitigate that risk of team management. So one of them is milestones. So as a professor, when they set up their experience on Riipen, they create milestones that the student needs to complete through the platform. So as a prof, you can see on a dashboard what those milestones are and whether or not they've been completed by the student group. And then as a secondary incentive, what happens is the students actually get evaluated at the end of the project. So once they hand in their final deliverable to the company, there's a feedback form that the industry partners need to fill out that asks them to review the student on communication, critical thinking, professionalism, and creativity. And then they also evaluate them on any of the competencies that the professor outlined as being important to that specific project. So I'm not going to say that students never slack, because that of course does happen, but there are those systems in place to catch them early at least.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
And like I said, that kind of generated another very quick question, so I'll ask that one. So with regards to the reasoning, in other words, for what you showed as the business cases, those could have been contracted out to, let's say, a market research company or a consultant with supply chain and so on. Well, let me ask it this way. What is the difference? Why would somebody pick this program over going outside for what looks to be fairly significant strategic projects, things that would have an impact to the country? And this is your time to crow about why Riipen's a better way to go. But I'm curious what you're seeing in terms of why the decisions to take an intern versus an outside firm to do those things.
That's an excellent question, and Danny, feel free to jump in as well and add details. We've actually identified that there is a difference between hiring a professional consultant for a mission-critical work that you're looking to complete, and by no means we want to replace that. We actually just encourage companies to go out and use a professional consultancy help for some critical items that will directly impact their mission, their operations. But we also identified that there's a space for side projects. Those projects that you probably know that are sitting by your desk and you know they're nice to do, nice to complete, but you may not necessarily have the resources, capacity to do. And those are really the most optimal projects we're looking to accomplish with students. Because not only it gives a great experience for students, but also now you have those projects completed and both parties win. So even in the worst case scenario, student does not complete the project as well as you were looking for, your critical operations are not as impacted.
Gotcha. Okay, thank
you. Yeah, great question. The last pieces of information really just wanted to touch upon the process itself, what it looks like to get started and how simple it is. And then, of course, the elephant in the room, the pricing. So there are a few key steps, right? We would get you started first by posting a project. you would create your profile on our platform, a company profile. Just think of LinkedIn, and under your profile, we would populate it with a project. And project is simply application where you would indicate what you're looking for. From there on, it will allow you to browse our library of courses. Courses meaning it's applications coming from schools offering what their students can accomplish. So think of a marketplace, right? Again. The second step is through the matchmaking process, through our email recommendations, our consulting team suggesting you different courses to take a look at, as well as schools connecting with you, and you reaching out to schools as well. You then make an appointment with the professor. You interview, you make a selection for the right class, and then when it comes to the start of this project, you'll get a team of students and start the project itself. As you can see, there is a chat feature available, and like Danny mentioned, there is a milestones feature available as well. So you can see the completion of each component of the project if there are specific parts within that project. And last, once the project is over, you provide the feedback to students, and of course you can add them to the talent pool if you'd like, and you can see their scorecard.
So Vitaly, you know you're going to get lots of questions from me on this one. So I'm curious, do you have any metrics about the conversion of an intern to a hire based on your program?
Danny, do you know if we have that statistics yet, or it's still in the analysis stage?
Jump in. So we don't actually currently measure employment statistics from the platform. And the reason why is we actually focus more on the employability side than the employment side. So there's no push for our employers to hire the students that they worked with through these projects. If they do, and they often do, I mean, we hear about it anecdotally all the time. And it's certainly important to us, but the focus for now has really been on that skills measurement component. Like, does the student feel that they are now more employable because they had this experience with companies? And does the student feel like they're better able to communicate what skills they have? So those things we have metrics on based on the skills piece for the feedback, but not employment directly.
And as we said, we'd give you guys some feedback. So here's my personal feedback. I think that would be a really nice metric to have, because it would, as a student, I might consider this over any other intern programs, because it looks like for every 100 students you put out there, 5 of them have been hired. So that there's, in a sense, it's in this day and age, the ability to connect and get in front of people for hiring situations, it's kind of stretched sometimes. So I think that might be an interesting perspective for you to just kind of track in the background. Mm-hmm. And I will ask the audience out there, please either agree or disagree with me on that. But for those of you in the HR space, how do you feel about that kind of perspective about this, the hiring and adding them to the pool?
So this is Rob. I totally agree. It's a lot more than really nice. It's business critical. I think it's a make or break. I'm looking at it from a different perspective too. I'm looking at it from trying to get businesses who are looking for creative solutions or inexpensive solutions, or a combination of both, from a relationship that I have with the university, and it's something I did, 20 years ago, something like that, when we had a relationship with Colorado State University, and I had 2 doctoral candidates in statistics. I don't know. They did a brilliant analysis of how our metrics were being used in the HR function, and it was extensive. They did it using the techniques that they had learned at Colorado State. It was an ongoing relationship. It was a relationship that cultivated future relationships as well, because once you're in, you can start to influence the engagements. And so being able to measure that kind of success beyond just how did you feel about the interaction with the client, to me is really important. So like I said, it's way beyond just nice.
Yeah, and I'll just add very quickly that since job fairs are probably non-existent or pretty doggone close to it, I think this is one of those things where it stimulates people to join the program because that is their entree into the job world. Bobby, your question, please. I thought it was an interesting one. I don't have the answer to it, but I'd certainly love to hear Vitaly and Daniela's perspective on that.
Yeah.
Sure. A few years back, because so many people were using internships for free labor, DOE became very particular about the requirements for giving Carnegie Hour credits for internships. So I was just wondering how this platform aligns with those requirements. And then, we could take it down another level depending on whatever state you're in. Your state education agency also has very specific requirements for internships. And I was just wondering the experience that you've had with that, and both from an institution side and an organization side, kind of dealt with that.
Yeah, for sure, Bobby. That's a great question, and certainly, as you can imagine, one we get all the time. So I think to kind of tackle two questions that are being asked in the chat, I think the way that Riipen makes money also provides a lot of clarity to how this whole thing works. So the way that Riipen makes money is primarily through working with academic institutions. So colleges and universities purchase the Riipen platform to grow and scale this type of work integrated learning initiatives across their entire institution. The reason why they do that is there's an increased focus on student employability as an important metric for students at graduation. So they want to make sure that they're providing their students with enough opportunities to connect with employers. So the reason that leads into your question, Bobby, is that actually all of the experiences on Riipen are either for course credit or paid. So we don't actually fit into the unpaid internship category because the Riipen experiences are being built into the courses themselves. So the students receive academic credit and training that is validated by an academic institution.
Okay, good
Yeah.
deal. Any other comments to that one? Because Frank, I think you were thinking what I was thinking, Frank. Why don't you let's go ahead and ask the question if you don't mind. Just open up your mic and be my guest.
Okay, so I was just wondering if it's been your experience that some types of projects are more popular or in more demand, I should say, than others are. And if so, what would be some of the general topics, the types of projects?
Yeah, I can take that one. Actually, I just did an analysis a couple of weeks ago. About 38% of the projects are tied to market category, marketing strategy, competitive analysis. Sorry, I'm just frozen here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, my picture got frozen. So that would be marketing. The second category would be similar. It would be market research. So if company is looking to expand, learn more about their consumer base, competition, again, that would be market research. What falls under that would be things like computer science related skills. So web development, app development, data analysis, IT, HR, and other subcategories.
Great, that's really helpful. I was actually specifically curious if I was going to hear you say cybersecurity, because that's always at the top of the list of the strategic objectives of CEOs for particularly large companies and utilities.
Yeah, and I should say, actually, to add to that, one thing to keep in mind is that the marketplace nature of Riipen leads to certain types of projects being more prevalent because it's also about what's being offered in academic institutions. So we do and have seen a lot of projects in cybersecurity from industry partners and have certainly matched them to cybersecurity programs. I think one of the reasons it's not more popular on the platform is because there's so many institutions that are not teaching cybersecurity at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. That's very helpful.
It's kind of, like I said, every time I hear somebody's question, it actually answers or raises another one. So, for example, do you find that any associations out there are looking to these interns to bring them in? So, for example, I belong to an HR technology organization, and we probably could use interns to help us to augment and do some things. So are you seeing any nonprofit organizations or, if you will, associations maybe looking to the interns to both bring them in, interest them in what the association offers, and maybe even kind of build some relationship between the two of them so that we now have a brand new member when they get out of college, or in some cases, student members? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that one.
Yeah, we definitely have seen that. The majority of Riipen's marketplace, I should say, is small, medium enterprises. We define that as like 20 plus employees. I think that sits in a nice spot where they have a lot of projects to do, but have not yet, but they don't have as formal a process as, for example, an IBM would have. For the question you had around associations and nonprofits, we certainly do see that, and a lot of not necessarily associations as well looking to brand themselves among students. So brand and building relationships with students is definitely an important piece of the platform. And the way that we talk to companies about that is that this is a much more genuine investment in a student's future, helping to train them through offering them a work integrated learning experience than, for example, putting your logo on a campus party would be. So really connecting them with them through a project.
Mm-hmm. And I'll extend that one more level, if you will, and it's probably a more complicated perspective, but a lot of associations offer certification programs for the discipline they represent. Are you seeing any interaction between the students, the certification, and the association that says, as a student, I could work on your project and maybe I get some credits towards some form of certification or something of that nature? I'm just kind of curious what you're seeing. And then also, flip side on organizations, are your students being brought through other programs like a training program internally with the company that helps their education on the other side? In other words, I took a Microsoft class, I got certified while working for ABC company, and that was something that really looks good on my resume and it's part of my general courses. I'm just kind of looking at the interaction between what's being taught in the higher education, what's the real world is looking at. And I'll say this carefully because I don't want to insult anybody in the audience. Degrees are one thing, but certification seems to be on the rise. So let's put it that way. So I think I'd call it practical experience for the students.
Yeah, I think so. I'll come into the piece around are they getting certified through associations? To be honest, I haven't seen that as a result of the connections through the platform. We definitely do work, though, as a platform with non-traditional higher education programs. So we work with a lot of boot camps and associations that do that type of certification and want to bring work integrated learning into the curriculum. An example of that I can give is an organization called Lighthouse Labs. They do specific technology training boot camps, and they work with Riipen to build in work integrated learning components. So same thing, those students going through the boot camp work with companies and nonprofits on short-term projects as a way to build their resume. So we're seeing more and more of those types of educational programs come onto the platform, but I haven't, at least like other than like by a case scenario, I haven't seen like a massive surge of students working with associations and then completing those association certifications as a result of that connection with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Great.
it would usually be something arranged between the organization and the student, perhaps post-project, if the student would like to continue some sort of a relationship with the company.
Great. Okay. So sorry, I took you off track there. I apologize.
Oh, no worries at all. Yeah. I think there were also a couple of questions about the the pricing and how it works for the companies. Yeah, just like Danny mentioned, in terms of the business model, most of our revenue comes from the academic institutions paying for subscription. For the companies, actually, since the COVID, we've opened up the doors for organizations to sign up for free. So there is a free subscription that a company can go onto Riipen and sign up on, and that will allow you to participate in up to 3 projects or internships within a year. And that year, the subscription will be renewed as well for a year later on. We do highly encourage, though, to get in touch with one of our representatives prior to signing up on your own, so that we can consult with you based on your needs and what's the best way to go about matchmaking and your project. So hope that answers the question about the pricing.
I think it does. Okay. Do you provide any reports back to the employer in the organization? As we're taking the students through, I mean, I noticed at the end you said, we provide a feedback to the student when the project is finished. Is there anything on the Riipen project that allows me to see all the projects I've got going and what students are involved and so on? Or is that up to the organization itself to understand that, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, so you're referring to the visibility of the projects that are going on, the projects that have been completed. Yeah. So you will have that full visibility. Actually, let me just share what that looks like here. It might be easier to understand with visuals.
Yeah, so we're all in the metrics over here. We like dashboards.
That's great. Data, numbers, that's good.
Yeah.
So where I'm taking you all right now is our marketplace from the company's perspective. So you can see that this is a number of companies here signed up, and each of them has a unique profile. And under the profile, you'll be able to see the feedback form given by the students to this company specifically, as well as the projects that they have completed or are about to complete. And so by the same token, your company will have the same kind of profile, and under that profile, you'll have the projects. And if you go into the project specifically, you'll be able to see the details.
Yeah, I gather this is pretty much live data, so I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I would love to see, as you pointed out in that profile, there are ratings by the students who have worked on projects for that company. Could I ask you to just kind of take one, maybe you're very proud of one that's got 5 stars or what. I'm just curious, there were a lot of information at the top of that with the company that might be very interesting. If I were a marketing person trying to brand my company for the workforce, I might very much want to grab stuff like this and say, even students that are working for us are rating us at, 5 stars, and other comments that are made. It looks like you're gathering a lot of information about the interaction between an organization and the students in the intern program. And that's kind of the, to me, again, that's another plus for Riipen to have said, hey, as an employer, you want to be here because this is how that program works, and it really puts your brand in front of people, gives them a very good idea that we have our own people judging those companies as to how it is working with them, that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of good information here, again, I think it would be very, very important to push as you're going through the process and telling the employers, here's what it's all about. Branding is a big deal these days, certainly in the recruiting space.
Yeah, some really good points. You're taking notes.
That's why. This is all about a dialogue between us. That's right. You're telling us, and we're acquainting you. Any comments from the audience? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to add to that note that I do think at Riipen as a company, we see a ton of potential, of course, in the data that we're collecting. But the data, as we all on this call know, is valuable only when you get to the hundreds of thousands of participants, because then it can be representative. So we are still relatively early on, I would say, in our journey of gathering user data from both the student side and the employer side. But you brought up a really good point, which is how the value of that data will change in the future once it is representative enough. I think to add to that as well, the other thing we see as being really valuable is the data that we're collecting on the student portfolios and potentially down the road having like a top student portfolios recruitment aspect of Riipen, where you can see all of the top rated students by companies on Riipen. So we certainly are thinking about that, but I think if you think about it in terms of stages, building the marketplace to have that volume is the first piece.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I mean, the more you get, the richer your data is in doing that. So if you don't mind staying where you are right now, and I apologize, I want to open it up to the audience and say, please, if you've got questions, please pose them or mention it. But I'm looking at this Toronto Police Service. Let's put a little scenario to you. If I were a criminal justice person and I wanted to, and I'm in New York, and if I could go to Riipen and say, what are the projects that might have been out in intern programs that would relate to the kind of things that I'm seeking as an employee going out looking for that job? So I see this thing that says Toronto Police Department. Can I go in and look at the projects that have been executed there and the rating of that whole thing and say, wow, there's a company or an organization I want to apply to? In other words, this becomes a little bit of an aid for a college student coming out and a grad saying, I'm not sure where I want to go be employed or who I want to send my resume, but here's a list of things that have interacted with the college and higher education in programs and in internships, and they got high ratings, they did these really cool things. I can even speak to those things that they did. And really, to me, it's like a tool, an aid for job hunting or something. Maybe I'm oversimplifying the perspective, but I'm looking at this information saying that's valuable. That is very valuable stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So could a student take a look at this, or can they go out there and see this kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's open, and I think it's a great perspective to gain for students to take a peek into the company's profile prior to their perhaps decision, or to get a full overview of what the company is offering in terms of working with students. Again, yeah, I think another potential avenue for us to leverage down the road for sure.
Yeah, well, there's probably I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
I was going to say another thing I would add to that is that every one of these, we didn't really get into that, but these are also portals. So it's not just that all of this is the Riipen marketplace, but if you click into the Toronto Police Services, for example, all of the Toronto Police Services staff can be given access to that specific account to manage the project and relationships that they're having with students. And that also makes that portal link shareable. So you can actually take that and share it elsewhere. So for example, we have seen particularly larger companies like RBC using this as a recruitment tool. So they'll use challenges or projects before they actually get students to apply and send students to their portals on Riipen in order to see that. So I think students can browse it, of course, and it's open, so they would be able to technically stumble upon it through the platform. But I don't think we've seen as much of that as we have seen employers who are doing a lot of projects on the platform purposefully go out and share their link with students elsewhere.
Well, and certainly as students are completing projects and they did good on the project, the company's happy, they ought to be sharing out through their network as well. So like I said, you're sitting on what I'm personally going to say is a vast amount of great branding and company data that could be used in recruiting exceedingly well, if you will. Well, we just need to teach you how to use that. Yes, Rob, go ahead.
And also, you're sitting on a bunch of data of people who have completed great projects, so that either I can source them from the great project straight into my company, traditional intern model, or I can source from other places that they've worked or projects that they've worked on. I can even imagine a scenario where I worked on that as an intern on that project at HP. I loved it. It was a great project. HP's not hiring this year, so I'm gonna go look for other projects that were similar to that because I was so successful at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I guess to me, particularly with the the weird employment environment that we're dealing with right now, where there's a huge need for skilled knowledge workers. Sadly, for cheap skilled knowledge workers, but that'll work itself out. But there's a huge need for skilled knowledge workers in all sorts of different places, and I can see this being a much more than just a nice to see or a nice to have. This could be, if I were a recruiting manager, this would be part of my strategy.
Yeah, the big question that's sitting there that so I need to ask Vitaly and Daniela, is the personal student information sitting here where I could have it? Because as a recruiting manager, if I can see that, I think, and I'm seeing you nodding your head that it's not. So I think that kind of stops at that point. But from a candidate, I would want to do what you said, and that's go out there and find projects that were like what I worked on and see what companies those were. But I can't source into this database to go find a candidate, is what I'm hearing, and I think that's exactly what you don't want to do that.
Yeah, you are able to see the student's contact information, but only once you've worked with them on a project. And I will say that we did build that purposely because we think that the most important part of Riipen is the experience that those students get. So we don't want companies to come in and just recruit students without actually giving them those work integrated learning opportunities.
Yeah,
I'm not saying
there's a privacy question hanging out there too. So,
exactly. Plus, with our schools, obviously we have to be at like maximum levels of compliance when it comes to protecting student information. So you will see that we've built in, if you can see that little bubble right beside Chris, there is full in-app chat throughout the entire platform. So companies are able to reach out to students through the Riipen chat, but they won't be able to see their contact information directly.
Gotcha. Perfect. I didn't mean to cut you short, Vitaly, if there are other things you want to show. If not, and you want some questions, I would ask the audience as a whole, especially those HR folks out there who are really keen on this whole recruiting and sourcing situation, to make some comment. I personally think this is a pretty cool platform, but would love to hear from the rest of you.
Yeah, we can definitely open it up for more questions if you have any. If there's some that we haven't answered yet, please you can jump in.
Okay. Anyone out there in the world of recruiting, one way or the other, either providing tools or recruiting people? I'm taking notes, by the way. No. Like I say, it looks like as you're starting to build both the penetration of organizations and the amount of data that you're getting, this is a very useful tool. If there are competitors, I guess I should ask, do you have competitors in what you do in this manner, or are they more private companies doing that as a business and not as a platform?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say no direct competitors, like no one's doing exactly what Riipen is doing. What makes us unique is that direct to faculty component. So there's no one else in that space that's working to connect companies and nonprofits directly to students who are in the classroom with a technology platform. There are other companies who also work in the experiential learning space, of course. But in terms of the recruitment aspect of Riipen, what we see is more of a trend to automate the recruitment process. So there's a lot of companies who are focused on how you can make a very top of funnel large, but kind of find ways to find the perfect match through narrowing that down. Riipen's approach to recruitment is all around authentic engagement with students. So how can you evaluate students and potential talent based on an actual work product, as opposed to a resume, which is what we've used forever. And I don't think we've seen as much innovation in that way in the recruitment space.
Yeah. No, this is, like I say, I'm not a recruiter. I'm not an HR person. I'm an HR tech person. I get excited about things like this. So, but others out there in the audience, any comments or perspectives to give to Vitaly and Daniela?
So real, I had a question, and I'm hoping I didn't just miss it. Do you work across different industries, or are there certain industries you focus on?
We are open to working with all the industries. We notice that we do have organizations, a lot coming from nonprofit space, consulting, business services, marketing, but there's no limitation really because schools are open to working with companies of all sizes and different industries. So all are welcome.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think this is really great. It definitely simplifies the process for students because it can be overwhelming to try to figure out where can I get an internship and, how do I move forward with, my life.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the
Yeah,
head on that
the
one.
reason I was asking is I work in the dental industry. Hmm?
I was saying you
Oh,
hit
I'm
the
sorry, I
nail on
didn't
the
hear
head,
what you
but go
said.
ahead. Go ahead. No, you ask or mention your use case.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I was saying I work in the dental industry and we do work with interns, dental assistants to get, from school to get them started in dentistry. So I know that that's for us that is actually applicable.
Yeah,
That's it. That's my
that's great.
comment.
We've worked with quite a few dental offices as well. We had a project in that a little while back that was focused on health businesses, so dental goes under
Mm-hmm.
that. But I think one thing as well with all of the businesses, and one reason we see such a range in the type of industries is that every business, no matter if you're a dental office, you still have finance challenges or HR challenges or marketing challenges that students could address. So there are these things that kind of bring together businesses of all different types of industries, and I think that's what makes the marketplace so diverse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Curious, do you have any small startups who are looking at your interns as a way of not necessarily augmenting? I heard you talk about, let's say app development or something like that from an IT standpoint. Are you seeing that that's a kind of a sourcing, let me bring some really smart people into the table, get them to help us work on a brand new idea and maybe hire them or offer an equity position or whatever it is that startups do these days? I'm curious what kind of penetration you have in the startup world.
So Vitaly can add to this for sure because he spends a lot more time talking to companies. There's a lot of startups that use the Riipen platform. I would say we don't see as much like one-man shows on the Riipen platform, mostly because when you're like a very early stage entrepreneur, you don't have a ton of time to dedicate to the projects. But once they start getting into a bigger size, like maybe they have 2 or 3 employees, we see a lot of those because now they're starting to think about expansive projects and also have the bandwidth to actually consistently communicate with the student.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you asked somebody from the audience. So I was pausing there. Yeah.
Well, I was going
Just
to
like,
say, do you guys use interns? Let's start with no.
actually, we have quite extensively. I should say I myself am managing right now 7 we just hired, quite a number of them. So we ourselves use our platform for that too.
And the reason I say that, I mean, we see a lot of startups in the Technology Review Council, so I think that's something we could offer back to them quickly and say, hey, if you haven't heard of Riipen, go out and see them. It's an excellent place to find some good recruits and interns and get things done. Very cool.
Exactly.
Anything else from the audience? If not, Vitaly, Daniela, I will ask you, do you have questions of us? Anything that's burning in your back of your mind of what you've experienced in that? Maybe what does it take to bring you guys to a company? Anybody offer up any perspective of what's appealing and what's not appealing, if there is such a thing of not appealing? What is about it Riipen that would stop us from bringing you to any of the companies that are represented out here?
Yeah, I think I would love to hear, and I always love to ask this question in a setting where I feel people will be honest, because I think sometimes people feel the need to be nice to Vitaly and I. But I'd love to hear why people wouldn't use something like this, like hesitations or objections around why this would be useful to an organization, because I think that's really useful for us to understand.
Anyone want to volunteer something from their perspective? We won't attribute it to the company necessarily. We'll just look at your opinion.
I'll speak to the opposite of that. This is Melissa, and I'm a chief people officer in the startup industry. And I wanted to share with both of you that I love this. It meets a huge need that we have, as ultimately a resource manager for the needs of an organization, to be able to tap into this kind of platform and not limit ourselves to a specific geographic region, and tap into talent really across the country and on into Canada as well, because there are pockets of expertise at different universities. And I've been looking for something like this because it takes a lot of time and effort on our part to go and search and possibly search multiple universities and develop those relationships. And for you to come in and kind of be the marketplace is a great way to describe that, between us and these resources, is fantastic. So I'm excited about this. And yes, there are some tweaks to make. I think you've heard some really good feedback today, but ultimately I think this is going to meet a wonderful, it's meeting a need in the industry as I have experienced it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate it. One quick question, as you mentioned the geographic presence, do you have any international or global companies who are saying, I need interns in different parts of the world, and that's not one university? And do you have people that kind of look to multiple teams across that and across different? It strikes me that it would be something you'd offer, but I'm not sure if you're seeing that need.
Yeah, definitely. There is, I can just add, there has been companies from Mexico, UK, we have campuses on UK, and Singapore. The only condition we sort of put out here for companies is to make sure they have enough space, time, and capacity to accommodate students because of the time differences, and of course the language barrier, that they can communicate with students clearly.
Right. Well, needless to say, we've all been managing the remote workforce now for at least 7-8 months now. So I think that this fits the template well. In other words, I now can actually deal with people remotely. So I think you've just gained something out of this process. That's good. Any other questions? If not, I will certainly let us all go. I appreciate Vitaly and Daniela, your presentation. I think it's very, very nicely put together. Again, to my wonderful Technology Review Council, thank you very much for the interest and continuing to keep us going here. If you have any questions, you certainly can call me, and I'll connect you with Vitaly and Daniela. I'll have the link out there on the YouTube here very shortly if you want to share it with anyone else. In other words, take good care. Everyone stay well. Talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks, Nova, a lot. Bye.
Bye.